Thank you. Good evening. It is now 7 p.m. and I would like to start the meeting of the Standards Committee. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded onto the Council's website. Just before I go into apologies for absence, I spoke to officers earlier and suggested that the ethical framework with the pink paper on it, we could move towards the end of the meeting because of going into private session. I'm just making it that we just do private session at the end. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah, thank you. Okay, item number 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillors Johnson and Cathy Kent this evening. Councillor Jackie Maney is present as Councillor Johnson's substitute. Okay, maybe in a while. Are there any other apologies? No. Okay, thank you. Item number 2, minutes. Do members approve the minutes from the Standard Committee held on the 18th of November 2025? These can be found on pages 5 and 8 of the agenda. Do we approve them?
Agreed.
Yep, thank you very much, guys. Okay. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest to declare? No. Okay, thank you. Item number 4, member training and development update. This report can be found on pages 9 to 42 of the agenda. Can I ask Matt Bolter to present this item, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the report before you is fundamentally composed of 3 key elements. It looks at this year's training schedule, its performance and the feedback from members. Secondly, it looks ahead to next year's training schedule. And thirdly, it just looks at a refresh of the member development strategy. So to take each of those very briefly in turn. So as you can see from the report, this year's training has been well received by members, and we've had very positive feedback from members who have attended training. And I think you can see from some of the appendices as well that there's been a broad or breadth of opportunities that members have taken individually as well. Looking forward to next year's training, you can see, I think it starts on page 27, the member training schedule for next year. And you can see that we are offering on page 27 a core of essential and basic training that we offer every year to members, and that is a mixture of delivery by officers and also an external facilitator who we used this year, and she received very good feedback, so we're looking to repeat that for next year. You can also see, starting on page 28, that we are introducing a new element to our training, which we've called bite-size sessions, bite-size training. And what this is these are a collection of very short MST sessions led by specialist officers on various processes and functions and aspects of the Council's work. And we're offering this in the hope that, in addition to the core training, that we offer something to members that allows them to develop specialisms or skills that they can use in their day-to-day roles within the Council and also in their ward work. We had a really, really good response from directorates, and in fact we couldn't offer all the sessions that the directorates offered us because we just don't have enough time. So next year we're going to pilot this, we're going to see if members like it, whether they receive it well, whether it's useful for them, and then we'll hopefully look to repeat it in future years if it works. And then finally on next year's schedule, just to draw your attention to one of the recommendations, we do have some very limited online training, GDPR being one of them. If members here tonight have any ideas on any other online training that they feel that the members could benefit from, do let me know, because we'll take that away and explore it with our training team, whether that's something we can offer. And finally, the third element of the report is just the member development strategy. I haven't really got much to say on this. This was subject to internal audit in 2024, so we refreshed it and revised it quite extensively last year. There's not much more that we've changed this year. We've just refreshed it, updated some of the dates and timelines, and it's really there for you to endorse tonight. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. First, anyone want to ask any questions before? Yes, please, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say about the bite-sized pieces you were just talking about. I thought they were a really good idea when I was reading through this. I thought that was excellent. There's a couple of things. It was the sheet that tells about which councillors have done what training. You mentioned in the report that some of it is because they're new councillors and the old councillors have already done the training. You did start off a while ago doing passports of training for each member, and I don't see any mention of those passports here. And I think I'd quite like to see training the members, I don't want to say older members, but members that have been here longer length of time that might not repeat the training, and therefore it doesn't look like they've done it, but actually they've got experience and they've got other experiences, but we don't get a sense of what all of councillors have done over their time that they've been with the council. That was one thing. The other thing was just you mentioned it there about any ideas for like online training, and there was a couple that sprung to my mind, which was around risk management and finances and acronyms and understanding the terminology around it. That if it was online, not only could you do it at your own pace, but you could revisit it to remind yourself, because when those reports come around, sometimes you're sitting there with him and you think, what was that? You know, it would be good to be able to do that. And even sort of like basic induction stuff. I know you have a day of it, but something around the code of conduct, Nolan principles, roles and responsibilities of councillors, behaviour, relationships with officers, that bit that's kind of covered off, I suppose, in the next report, but as an online training, I thought that would work quite well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor, for those comments. I think just to work backwards, I think they're really good ideas, actually, those online suggestions. In terms of finance terminology and risk management, we do produce a booklet for scrutiny committees, or certainly the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And actually, I think you're right, because you can look at that and refer to it, but if you do active learning, it can help things stick in. So I think that's a really good idea. And likewise, the basic induction, I think that could be something we could have just generally so that members can go on the training. And then, as referred to in the report, if you have a more experienced councillor who doesn't want to go to the training, they could do the online training just as a refresh. I think in terms of the passports, they do still exist. We've rebranded them. They're called member profiles now. The feedback we got was that passports maybe wasn't the right term, and profiles sounded a bit more corporate and I don't know, professional perhaps, or sleek, and that they are referred to in part 4.7 of the report. I think circumstantially on that, I think we could use those profiles better, and I would really like members to use it more as well, so that members take more of an active role in updating their profiles. Because one thing we found out is that members do have experience and skills outside of the council that they can bring to bear within their committees and the work they do here. So, and I have a commitment to using those profiles more as well, because I think they're a key for groups in how they manage their members at training, and also our political assistants can use them for various things. So I'll take that on board as well.
Thank you. Good question. Any?
No, I'm okay, Chair.
What about yourself, Councillor? Yeah, thanks for this, Matt. And obviously the list of training is really interesting and good. And it's kind of tagging on the point that Councillor Arnold made about, you know, some members who've been here a long time and obviously in May there'll be sort of new members. And it kind of, the effective speaking as a councillor, I wonder if there's also, this might be covered in the social media training, but also effective use of social media as a councillor as well. That could be, it might be something that's already part of the plan for the risk and danger zones of social media. But I'm just sort of thinking as well, you know, when I first started as a councillor, casework by social media wasn't really a thing, whereas now it is. You know, things have kind of changed and stuff, but the effective speaking is really important in chamber and committee and things like that, but also I don't know, effective projection of being a councillor on social media as well, rather than just being risks and opportunities, but more like, because that's such an important part of it now, which maybe wasn't until recent times.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I agree with that, and I think that training has historically been a guidance and parameter setting, but actually we could include something in that session about how to be effective and actually use it as a skills workshop, and I'll certainly take that away.
I'm also thinking, since I've been on this committee, the number of cases we've had on pink paper where it's been involving social media use, so how to sort of a lot of it's just projection and choice of words in some cases, you know, so just that whole how you project yourself as well could be really useful. Unless any other member has anything to say, I'll move on to the recommendations. Number one, notes the attendance figures and feedback provided for sessions in the 2025 to 2026 year to date. Agreed? Yep. Got to agree, otherwise we can't move on. Comment on and endorse the member training schedule for 2026-27 attached at Appendix 3.
Great.
Thank you. With reference to paragraph 4.3, endorse whips creating attendance lists for each training session in 26-27 to ensure targeted attendance for new members and those members requiring refresh training.
Great.
Thank you. With reference to paragraph 4.9, make any suggestions on online training topics that members may find useful for 2026-27. Agreed.
Great.
Approve the member development strategy for 2026-27 attached to Appendix 4. And in accordance with Section 13 of the strategy, make any recommendations to full council on the resources and budget available for member development for consideration in the 2026-27 year. And I've just seen at the end, do you note or approve these recommendations? But we haven't, we one by one.
Great.
Thank you. With the agreement of the committee, we're going to move item 5. So, item 6, constitutional updates, protocols for ethical frameworks, chapter supplemental report. This report was circulated to members as a supplemental item before the publication deadline. Can I ask Dan Fennick to present this item, please?
Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Chair. So what you have before you is 3 protocols from the Constitution that we've revised and updated. Their relationship to the Code of Conduct is to act as a form of guidance, and we've tried to redraft them so they're as practical as possible, as well as setting out some of the what you might call more rule-based provisions. One, in terms of feedback we're looking from the committee is about the content, and secondly about the approach, because as you will see from reading them, we've tried to adopt a kind of approach which isn't just a set of rules but also has case studies to bring it to life, and obviously that's something that we can roll out into other protocols as they come forward. Taking them in turn, the first protocol relates to a really important issue, member-officer relations, and links hopefully with Matt's work that we'll be doing around the members' induction, is to help new members but also more experienced members in terms of where are the similarities but also differences between the roles of members and officers, because I think the phrase often used is that members and officers have different but complementary roles to deliver the outcomes the council is trying to achieve, and it's working out where that balance is and how to maintain it is one of the difficult things. So you can see there's a number of sections there to guide and trying to give guidance on the member side and then the officer side about how to maintain that guidance, maintain that difference, but also not in a way where you say, I can't talk to you because you're a member, or the other way around. But if you take a situation like a planning committee, if a member of the public walked into a planning committee and saw all the members talking to all the officers, they can get a false impression of how formal and quasi-judicial that committee can be run. So it varies with the context. So really, opening it up for questions and comments as to whether the right information is covered, and as I say, the approach. I did note that there is a typo in there, and there's two headings, number 9, and so we'll delete the second number 9, and I'm sure you all spotted that. I don't know, Chair, do you want me to go through each of the protocols or take questions as we go through?
I think we can take questions as we go through, I think. So, any questions at this point for Dan? Any of us? No?
Not the first part.
Yeah. Go on, Councillor.
Not actually a question, more of a comment of I think that is the nuts and bolts of what I was saying to you about basic induction training. I think it works well. I think the scenarios kind of lend themselves to that question as you're going through the interactive course. I think you've kind of got it there already.
There you go, Matt. Yeah. But what we need to do is bring it to life, and that's what, because, if I handed this document over to new council and say, read that, come back to me if you've got any questions, it's not going to get anywhere, is it? We need to, as I say, that hopefully the case study, I've certainly in other places, the case study approach, I think councillors and officers can recognise that as things that they may come across in their daily work in the council.
Yeah, I think you've made a good point there, Councillor Arnold, that if we as members read this, and it's even the how to sort of put in an inquiry, and even not to direct an officer to do something. And also sometimes we do have casework where it comes back that they can't do what we've asked because of various reasons or whatever. So I think, and again what you said there, Dan, it's about literally bringing this to life, isn't it? Because this is the set of rules, but now it's about how we get members to sort of embody those rules and practice them in how they go about their daily work,
And obviously this is about officers as well, this particular protocol. And it's as important for officers to understand that they can work with members and they're not a different species, not to be touched. And what we've also added in there is to show respect to members in terms of dealing with queries. So, within time, but also understanding what a member wants out of a query, or the information to then advise the constituent. So it's a two-way street.
Councillor Holloway, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. One of the questions I'd like to ask in relation to the protocol as it's laid out, and we touched on this at the previous meeting, and that is not only the behaviour of public office, of us as councillors, but the consequences of that. I was wondering if I could ask if there's any progress being made in relation to further drafts of this going forward with regard to the strengthening of the standards and conduct framework for local authorities, because we have the rules in place. We've got our members' handbook, pretty much the protocols and behaviour, and that will be laid out to new members as they're inducted in. But we haven't yet got anything really in place in relation to the consequences if you move outside of this that could bring yourself and your office into disrepute, or that of the council. Now, I know the consultation's been out, was touched upon by Councillor Arnold, and indeed, I believe, our co-ops members last time. It's mentioned in the minutes. Is there any progress on that, and is there anything in the post that we might be looking for and say, look, these are the protocols, there are consequences if you're being seen to violate them, because ultimately it will come back to this committee, Chair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Unfortunately, as we know, that's with the government. The consultation completed and a response to that, but there's been it will require legislation to, for example, introduce a nationwide code, and secondly, to reintroduce sanctions, and they are supportive of the introduction of sanctions, but they need to legislate for it because it's in primary legislation. So we, unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it's round the corner as yet.
Thank you. Councillor Fox, and then I'll go to Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. When you go through this is a process that should be followed. And being involved with processes many years ago, it falls into 3 one-liners. Say what you do what you say, prove it. Follow them 3 one-liners, nothing should go wrong because you're working through exactly what's written down there.
I've written that down as well, just for Matt, of course. No, it's a very good way. It's simplifying something that can be quite complex. Is where we need to get to, because I think hopefully most people read this. Well, that's common sense. That's common sense, Or oh yeah, I've come across that. So thanks. That's really helpful. We'll copyright it for you. All right. Yeah.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. It's off the back of what Councillor Holloway was saying. Is there sort of like an interim thing that we can do? Like as a council, are there like rules or suggestions of rules of conduct that we can implement ourselves without breaking any legal laws or anything? Is that something that we could do and could go to the chamber to be debated, and we decide as all 49 councillors if we want to implement it into our own constitution? Is that a possibility?
Well, in a way, that's what these are, because this will go to full council for approval. Unfortunately, I think the specific element of Councillor Holloway is, obviously we want a system that people consent with, but you also need, in certain cases, to have sanctions, because otherwise we say, well, I'll just carry on behaving like that. Nobody can stop me. I think the other element which can be quite powerful outside of legislative change is the peer pressure of other members about what is acceptable and not acceptable, and challenging that behaviour. And I've certainly worked in councils where that was more of a constraint and an immediate constraint, because it can happen in the meeting that somebody is misbehaving or in response to something. And that, that is certainly something that, I can recommend, and hopefully by making it clear what our standards are through these protocols, it gives those other members who want to maintain those standards the material, I suppose, to say, no, this is what we've all agreed we should be doing, because when it goes through full council, effectively every councillor is agreeing that, and even those who vote against it have to accept that that is now part of the council's constitution. I can't offer any more comfort than that, I'm afraid.
Has anyone else got anything they'd like to comment on or ask, or no? Okay. We now move on to approving the recommendations. Approve and
I've got 2 other protocols to go through.
Sorry, right. Apologies.
It's all right. Don't worry. I'll be quick. So I think the protocol for councillors on gifts and hospitality again falls into that category of giving advice, but also has some rules in it about which you'll be familiar with. Is where you're offered gifts and hospitality of value over £50, estimated value over £50, that they have to be declared. Then that's the core rule. That register will be kept and made public. What this protocol seeks to do is provide the kind of the flesh on the bones of that, how to deal with particular situations, and also, yes, it is possible for members to accept gifts and hospitality, but there probably are also circumstances where it is probably inappropriate. So the obvious example that most people would use is if you're a member of the planning committee. I certainly worked in a council where every member of the planning committee was sent a Christmas hamper. Fortunately, I'd love to say all but one refused because they told us about it, but no, every single member of the committee said that's clearly inappropriate, even if I could accept that, because of obviously the transparency, the probity issue, but also their own personal feeling of potentially they've given a message that they feel bound to a particular, it obviously came from a developer in that way. So there's guidance on that. Also, small but repeated offers of gifts and hospitality that may be below the threshold, and being mindful of that situation. And obviously at its most extreme form, particularly an offer of money could potentially be a criminal offence, as in you're being offered a bribe, and being able to respond to that. So hopefully straightforward. There are some examples in there. Again, the similar approach, and open to answer any questions. Okay, so I'll move on to my third protocol, if that's okay. Social media. What can we say? I think you're absolutely right, and we do link, and building on your comment at the start, there is LGA guidance on the best use of social media, because it is an absolutely fantastic tool, I can imagine, for a councillor to be able to reach out to as many constituents and quickly as you can to get out basic information or deal with requests or whatever. And certainly, certainly a step on from the days of putting leaflets through people's doors, advertising about surgeries, etc. But also, as we know, social media can be a hindrance to good conduct. And I think there's probably a lot of this, and we say it in here, this is about common sense, really. Because the dangers of social media come down to probably two things. One, it's instant, as in, it's gone. Two, it's permanent. So once it's out there, even if you try to retract something, particularly as councillors, there's every chance somebody at the other end is going, oh, look what he or she has said, repost it, and it's gone. When I first drafted this protocol in another council, actually, you could also rely on the social media platforms to be quite responsible, and would often take down things, particularly critical things that were beyond the pale, or if you reported something would happen. I think that culture, as we probably know, has gone. So again, this is very much on the level of helpful guidance, but it is only one piece of guidance. I think the bit that's more specific, which links back to Councillor Kerrin's comments at the start of the meeting about increasingly seeing code of conduct matters related to social media, is being conscious of when you are on social media, are you likely to be seen as being acting in your official capacity? And I think that the one takeaway that, without going into great detail here, but again, something for the members' induction, is what is that grey area? Because just saying, well, this is my private account, is not necessarily going to cut the mustard, because if you are using your private account, but say it's half an hour after a particularly boisterous council meeting, and saying, I can't believe what the leader said about this, starting a debate, clearly about council policy, clearly criticising other councillors, talking about political matters. The fact that you're doing that on a private account is not an indemnity card to avoid a finding that you may be acting in your official capacity. I think what private capacity in that sense means is, my daughter's obsessed with roller skating, so I have to love her every single time she puts a, that is clearly outside of my job as councillor, and you can think about the same thing in your own context. But really, I think, and also we've tried to include something about this is not a one-way street. It's not all about councillors abusing everybody. It is recognised that councillors are subject increasingly to abuse on social media, and we provided some guidance in this protocol to assist members with regard to that as well. So, I mean, it's there. Hopefully, it's informative, but it will only be successful if it's built on, through our training, through awareness, and hopefully we'll see a reduction in the number of complaints that are social media related.
Thanks for that. And I think the social media one is one that will have to be reviewed much more often. And say the example you gave of the lovely Christmas hampers for people on planning committee. I mean that's something which is as old as time, and But I think social media is just changing all the time, and this 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about TikTok as a political force, for example. And, in another 10 years, there'll be something that hasn't even been invented yet, and etiquette will change over time. And, so I think the social media one is one that probably needs reviewing and updating more than any other, really, because it's just because it changes so much. I think that's just the thing. I think, and I suppose we have to look into the future about how many times something to do with a social media platform winds up at this committee as well, and review it from there. But it's not so much a question, Dan, more just a comment that I think it's something which will just constantly need to be refreshed and looked into.
I think you're absolutely right, because when I was refreshing this, I kind of was almost embarrassed. We tried to define social media as if we're a High Court judge, sort of slightly out of touch. And the list of apps and platforms that was listed previously just looked like, so even it's probably only 5 years old. But find me a young person who uses Facebook, for example. But you're absolutely right, and I think it is something that we will keep under review, probably on a 12-month basis. And probably, as I say, when I first wrote this, we probably did have to advise some members what is social media, because they weren't clear, and I think that we've moved on from that.
Having, and still am, an IT trainer,
Yeah.
I don't do social media, but I fully support what is written in this, and exactly what has been said. It does need to be constantly updated, because that world in IT is changing day by day, month by month.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see that, and every councillor put through so they know exactly what they can and cannot do with social media.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow on from Councillor Fox on that one, Chair, we are moving in a fastly moving technological age. In the spirit of openness and transparency, and well, this meeting and all of our council meetings are live streamed, and they can be used as a platform. Without these protocols, to be abused, so to speak. And I think when we refer to the previous recommendations on training, I think it was page 36, Chair, which recommended standards training. I think this particular part of the protocols does need to be reaffirmed regarding social media, because it's not what you post at that Kodak moment in time. It's there forever. And is once again, if you're enforcing standards, perhaps this particular protocol ought to be in bold. This is the one you really do need to underline on training, because the consequences of getting it wrong does invite the potential of all kinds of legal action, not just for the moment it happens, but on something that might have been posted beforehand. So I'll leave it there, Chair, but I will reaffirm the recommendations made on the previous agenda item, and perhaps when we get to this one, the importance of this particular section of the protocols.
Anyone else want to comment or? Yes, please, sir.
Probably doesn't fit into this section, but has cyber security come up and training around phishing emails? I've recently been on one training session where I saw a video and then saw the same video that was AI generated, and it was totally different and what they were saying. So is that sort of training being taken into account, or communication to make people aware?
There certainly is. There certainly is on the network. So, for example, and obviously all councillors are on the council network, we do sort of test exercises. So, kind of fake phishing emails will come out effectively to see if they can catch people, and as part of the training and awareness, and members are covered by that, and you just get a message that says, you know, you've clicked on the wrong button, you now need to go and do some training or some brown. I now report everything because I'm in charge, and the last thing I want to be is caught. I got one right and one completely wrong. So there is that, but I do think there is probably something around guidance. Again, you know, we'll pick that up, but I think picking up on, you know, I'm very conscious that there's nothing in a member's induction. There's nothing worse almost than sitting and listening to the monitoring officer tell you all the things you shouldn't do. Yeah. You know, as a kind of, you know, you've just got elected and now it's like, well, don't do this, don't do that, follow these rules. Yeah. It's more about bringing it to life and focusing on the things that actually resonate immediately. And I can only assume that any councillor or candidate that's been through an election campaign knows all about what goes on social media, for good or ill. So, whereas if you think the previous protocol it's necessary to have about gifts and hospitality, you'll see a report about the number of gifts and hospitality received. You need to be aware of it. Well, we're not Westminster, we're not Kensington and Chelsea, where you know they're getting gifts and hospitality left, right, and centre. And so that's more relevant, is focusing on the things that, you know, which parts of our ethical framework really matter and are really pertinent. And so that's really helpful feedback.
Any other comments? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. I now move on to the recommendations. To approve and recommend to full council for adoption the protocols contained in appendices 1, 2 and 3, and delegate to the Executive Director of Corporate Resources and Monitoring Officer to make any changes required by the committee of minor or clerical changes required between Standards Committee and submission of the report to full council. Do members note these recommendations? Thank you. We'll do the work programme, and then obviously our last item will be actually item number 5. So, has anyone got anything for the work programme?
Not here, Chair.
Okay. All I'd like to myself is the item you've just spoken about, Dan, and earlier when Councillor Arnold was talking about it as well, about getting it to full council or to like an initial draft or something like that. Wonder if we could have something on the work programme about how close we are to getting this to full council and approved, because I think we've had a really good discussion about it tonight, but it would be good to keep it on the work programme so that the next committee after May has got it front and centre.
Fine, okay. Absolutely fine. We were, like many of us, we've been thrown slightly by the reinstatement of the elections. There we were, all kind of, having a little nap, and we've lost a few meetings, shall we say, potentially. So we're just looking at that timetable, but the intention was to have been able to bring these to council meetings in advance of May, with a view to the, shall we say, that the whole of the constitution being adopted as one at the annual council meeting, as a kind of, if only a kind of, a slight element of gesture about that. We are in the process of reviewing that, and we'll come back. But I think it is important to kind of complete the circle back to standards to report what's happened to the work you've done. And there are a few more protocols coming your way. Have we got? I think this might be the last standards committee.
This municipal year, yeah.
So we might review whether we need to have another meeting before May, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Anything else for the work programme? Okay. So we go to agenda item number 5, the ethical framework report, and it can be found on pages 43 to 54 of the agenda. As Appendix 3 to this report is exempt, if members wish to discuss this appendix, we will need to go into exempt session. Can I ask Dan Fenwick to present this item, please?
I'm actually going to ask Lyra May Mayari, who's our Head of Legal Services, to present this item, if that's okay.
I personally think I want to discuss the info. Thank you very much. I now declare the meeting closed, and thank you as we're at the end of this cycle of meetings. Well, maybe, but we're at the end for now. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, co-opted members as well, for everything over the course of the year, and thank you to officers as well. Thank you, everyone.